Hi, everybody. I'm Heidi Monika Romer, United Latinas board member, and I'm so happy to be here with the one and only Martha. Thank you so much for being our guest today.
That's right. Thank you so
Martha,
much, Heidi.
please. Hi, please introduce yourself. What's your full name? Where are you from? And what city are you repping today?
All right. So first of all, Heidi, thank you for having me. My name is Martha Nino Rodriguez Sandoval, Oros, Perez, Benavides. I got so many names, but I go by Martha Nino Rodriguez. I'm originally from Zacatecas, Mexico. Hey, yes, Mexico. And that's the big center state in Mexico. A lot of people don't know it, but they're about to get to know it right now. So that's where tequila agave comes from. So there you go. And that's where I
Okay.
come from too.
Ooh.
And then I'm chiming in from Santa Cruz, California.
Amazing. Is that okay? I like to think I'm good with geography, so I know like NorCal, SoCal. Like where is that?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I'm in Northern California, so I'm a little bit off to the side of Silicon Valley. So I left the Silicon Valley after most of my life about 5 years ago, and I moved towards the mountains and the beach. So if anybody wants to come visit me, aquí estoy.
Okay, I'm raising my hand right now in front of everybody, in front of the world. Yeah,
I'm making room for you right there.
all right, I'm coming. I'm coming. I'm such a fan of yours, and I know that might be like, hey, what do you mean? But no, and I know I'm not the only one that feels that way. I first saw you speak back in 2024 as the keynote at the Lean in Latinas conference, and that's where I had got your book, and I heard you speak, and I tell this to everybody that you said something that has always stayed with me. And it goes, when you write your story, you heal yourself. But when you share your story, you heal others.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that. And I talk about that all the time. And which leads me to, I don't even know where to start with you. Like, where do we start, Martha? Because I'm like, is it being the author? Is it being the TEDx speaker? Is it your foundation? Is it your experience in Silicon Valley? I don't even know where to start this
Well, I'll help you a
conversation.
little bit. You want me to help you? Let's just start at the beginning. I mentioned Zacatecas, and really, let's just start there. I'm 53, so we have 53 years worth of content, but about 23 minutes. So we're gonna make this as snappy as possible. So I was born in Zacatecas, very, very poor, like no water, no nothing, no electricity. My parents picked cotton. And when I was 2 years old, my parents decided to make the journey to the other side, which is the name of the book. The other side, from a shack to Silicon Valley. And it wasn't on a plane ride, it wasn't anything fancy like that. It was the poor immigrants journey to a better life, whatever that means for everybody. And the truth is, better is different for everybody.
Yes.
And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about how my life got better because of the risk that they took and why I'm able to do all of these things, right? So Mexican border, I made too much noise. I was a baby, of course I made noise. Couldn't make the journey with my mother. And so my mother had two options. She could either go back to picking cotton, or she can hand me to a stranger and hope that we'd reunite. So I passed, actually. And let's just stop right there. Let's just think about that. I'm a mama, you're a mama. Imagine.
No.
That's what my mom had to do. Like, so I like to say, is the situation so hard that in places that parents have to make these decisions? And the answer is yes. And the answer is yes, unfortunately. And so my mom made that hard decision, hoping that we'd reunite on the other side. So imagine the only thing you're holding on to is hope. Hope. I knew about this story when I had heard it sprinkled, when the comadres come to the house and but I really never really thought much about it. And, ended up in Northern California in a place called Fremont, which was not the Silicon Valley back then, but eventually it did become the Silicon Valley.
Wow.
And, one bedroom, 9 people. My parents, lacked education. My dad only went to school till second, my mom till sixth. So very, very hard, like base that I came from.
Yeah.
Spanish was my first language, también. And my parents didn't know English, of course. And so without proper documentations, I didn't realize how much fear, like as a child, my parents were actually living. Like I was just busy being a kid, and they were over here, trying not to go back to that life that they came from.
Wow.
That's a very, very hard situation. And, without getting into politics, it's just a story of wanting something better, just wanting something better for yourself and for your kids.
Yes.
And so, growing up, I ended up basically working a lot. Like by the time I was 10, I delivered newspapers. I like to say I was like delivering news before Google.
Yes.
And like literally like rolling up newspapers and throwing them. And by the time I was 14, I really wasn't focused on school, but I was too old to deliver newspapers. I mean, when boys start whistling, like, it's you're too old for that. So my mom ended up taking up a second shift at her work, and they were looking for essentially cheap labor. $3.35 an hour. You guys can do the math on what year that was. $3.35 an hour. And I was like, well, look, I'm gonna go work with my mom. My mom's like, you're gonna come work with me. In a way, it was her way of giving me something to do. I don't think she consciously knew this, but it definitely gave me something else, right? So I ended up working at this company, and that company, which by the way, made ceramic stuff, ceramics like mud, cerámica.
Okay.
And that's actually kind of interesting parallel in how I end up reflecting on my life, because I was not very good at ceramics. And I used to break everything. I'm very I have a lot of energy, and I'm like, And so for me to stay still is very, very hard. But that was my job, was sit there, this is their job. They're sitting in a cold warehouse every single day. And I just was not good at it. And the beautiful owner of this company, her name was Beth. And there's a story about her in the book. She opened the door to the office and she called me in, and I'm thinking I'm fired. And reality is I'm not fired. She's like, can you answer phones? She basically realized I really wasn't good at this job and said, but you might be good at this other. And that is very pivotal for somebody like me, porque nobody in my family had ever been to an office, and they didn't have to clean it. So I started working with Beth, blonde hair, blue eyes, wore pearls, all the things. And that was my first exposure to, wow, maybe there is something different that I can do. That's not just working in a cold warehouse. That's not just what everybody does. So anyways, that's the beginning of Martha, and not realizing that was really going to set me up for, not set me back, set me up for everything that was going to happen in the future.
Wow.
So I'm going to stop there, and then I'll keep going.
And how old were you at that time, Martha?
I was 14.
Wow.
I was 14, and I ended up working at that company throughout all of high school. So that's the other part. I focused on work. My parents couldn't afford or even knew how to, or the importance of getting your kids into extracurriculars. Their form of extracurricular was just bigger work, and so that's just an informational gap that we have in the educational system. So anyways, I was 14. I got kicked out of high school. By the time I was a senior in high school, I was called into the office, to the principal's office. I'm always getting called into offices, but this time it was.
This is for a good reason, though.
No, this one was a bad reason. The principal was like, didn't you get that note we sent in the mail? And I'm sure my mom got it, pero no entiende inglés, So they're like, you missed way too much school this last year and your grades are not good. And really, you belong in this, it was called a continuation school at the time. I think they have a different name for it, but I ended up at a continuation school, and that was really where all the problem kids went. And so all the gang, kids that were in gangs. But that was actually another pivotal moment in my life story, because I get to this school and I'm like, wow, these kids are all going through really, really hard things. And there was kids that had parents in prison. There was kids that didn't have parents. There was kids living in like warehouse, in like, wherever, they're homeless, homeless. There was kids with, parents with substance abuse issues. There was kids being abused. Like, it was a lot of heavy stuff. And so my heaviness was that my dad was dying of cancer at the time. My mom had to work. She had to make me work because I had to help out. So, we weren't bad kids. And I don't think any kid is bad. It's just there's bad situations. And that when I did the Adobe talk, that first time I ended up speaking, because I haven't always been speaking. As a matter of fact, again, from the time we crossed the border, we're told to be quiet. So for me to become a speaker and document when I had no documentation, that's a big, look, se me enchina la
me
piel.
too. I can't see them, but they're here.
Yes, se me enchina la piel, because now I know that everything that I've gone through, every single thing happened to me for a reason, so that I can confidently sit here with you, Heidi, and tell you our brokenness, our hurt, our whatever is so that we can help heal others. And we first have to acknowledge it ourselves. Ceramics, in the Japanese tradition of kintsugi.
When a cry.
I know. When I always make people cry. When a ceramic vase breaks in the Japanese tradition of kintsugi, they do not throw it away. Remember, I used to work in ceramics. I used to break every single thing. Like, it's just hitting me right now. Like, it's they don't throw it away. They actually pick it up and they mend it with gold glue. And so, look, this is just hitting me right now. Beth picked me up like that broken ceramic vase, and she took me into the office, which was that gold glue, right? And made me, and she was not embarrassed of me. She actually showed me, like, it was, look at that. Like, look at the parallels of that. So I love being older for that reason, because I now can step back and go, wow, let's unpack this. And when you start making the interconnections of what was to how you became and the reason, it's a puzzle. It's a beautiful puzzle, and you get kind of addicted to unpacking it. And like, even like right now, it's literally, I was thinking about me as that broken ceramic that somebody picked up and said, nah, we're not going to fire her, So I love the whole Japanese tradition of kintsugi for that reason. As a matter of fact, in the book, there's little gold breaks on the cover, because for that reason, as a representation that we are not broken, that our brokenness is actually what makes us, and not hiding our broken is proof that other people that they can overcome. So Heidi, you started by saying, I told you something about, when we begin to own our stories, we start to heal us. But when we release it, like I'm doing right now, hopefully somebody's seeing this and going, I don't feel as bad in my story as possible. So the healing of others through storytelling for me became very addictive later in my life. So fast forward, got kicked out of school, end up in the counselor's office. I call them believers. Beth was a believer. This counselor was a believer. And he really was very patient. So kudos to all the educational people out there. You guys have a hard job. Hard job. You're dealing with kids with all kinds of backgrounds. And, us kids that have those hard backgrounds, to get to them, it is tough. But this counselor sat with me, and he finally got it out of me and said, hey, what's going on? I finally told him about my dad, blah, blah, blah. He writes me this list. He says, don't worry, just do this, this, and this, and this, and you can go back and graduate in time. Wow. What?
Game changer.
Game
Wow.
changer. So I call that a hope plan, which I integrated into some of the stuff I'm doing now, because we don't know what we don't know.
Yes.
We don't know what we don't know. So I literally, nobody in my family had ever graduated from high school.
Wow.
So I didn't even know, like my parents didn't, by the time I was in 7th grade, I was already more educated than my family. Okay.
Wow.
So me getting to 11th, I was already kind of ahead, but me graduating from high school, that was a big deal. So anyways, I do end up doing all the things. I hustle to do that. And I do end up graduating on time. And then after that, my father passes away. I was still working with Beth at the ceramic company. I worked there 5 years. That's a long time. By the time I was 19, I had already had 5 years work experience, plus the 4 years of my paper route. Okay.
Wow.
So honestly, I think more kids should work. I mean, legally.
I agree. I agree with that. Like 1,000,000%. But I was just thinking something that you said. So you were 14, you were there until you're 19. There's so much growth, so many changes that happens at that time. And Beth, right, your believer, was with you during that. So that seems like a very special relationship, you know?
Yeah. And, also, just proof that it doesn't matter who helps you. It matters that they help you. Yeah. So no matter what we look like, help is help. Yes. Hope is hope. So I ended up eventually working in tech, and that was kind of I don't know if it was an accident or something, divine that made it happen, because I'm part of the 2% of Latinas in tech. That's a big deal, guys. And I did it
humongous deal.
29 years. 29 years I did that.
Wow.
And I never hyped that up.
I
know, but you know what? In my world, I was just working, and I didn't get hired because I was Latina. I was hired because I was good.
Right.
And that's an important thing. I was hired because I was good. So I interviewed really well. I was very confident about how I went into my work. I never like played myself down, because people like Beth and that counselor always hyped me up. Yes. So that's very, very important for us to hype each other up.
Yes.
Because words, we believe them. And although maybe sometimes we're thinking they're superficial, especially for kids, any word matters that is good, and that word might not come from parents, because maybe they don't know how to articulate it, but it could come from anybody. Yes. So I'm on the mission of good words. So listen, I was 22, 23 years old. I thought I was going to enter a sand company like Arena. I ended up working for a sound company. I got there that day because there was no Google to figure out. The temp agency put me in this sound company. I get there and I'm like, I don't know anything about sound. And I'm around all of these incredibly smart people from all the best schools. And I don't even have a college degree. I don't even have but that again didn't stop me. I'm just like, how can I help you? Like, I could have easily walked out the door, but remember, once you're in the door,
yes, that's like the hardest part sometimes, right? But you're in, yes, yep.
Yeah. So I don't know. Subconsciously, I was like, all right, I guess I'm gonna figure it out. We, as Latinos specifically, as hustlers, we figured things out.
So I'm like, shit out. Say it.
We figure shit out, because the prize is that paycheck for us. And remember, working for us, especially if we come from other countries or our parents come from other countries, working is the prize. So there I am. Somebody's willing to give me $15 an hour at the time. I was 23, and I'm like, I'm gonna figure this shit out, right? And I don't, by the way, cussing is uncomfortable but for right now, it feels comfortable.
It's appropriate.
And so I'm there. And again, I found a couple believers in that, sound company. By the way, it was sound for computers. And at the time, sound like this didn't even exist. We were taking out this whole idea.
Like crazy.
It didn't exist. we were making sound boards, sound cards. The gaming industry, like gaming industry was a new thing. Yes, I'm that old. There was dinosaurs roaming the earth or something. I don't know, something like that, they told me. And but we're taking these new ideas to the world, sound in a box, like what is that, right? And then I ended up working there 4 years, and I learned so much. And I do remember one of my believers who was my boss, his name's Ken, Asian, okay, looks nothing like me, because nobody looks like me at these places.
Yeah.
He sits with me, and I was like doing some stuff for him and his team, and he says, look, what do you want to do, like, in the future? Like, nobody really had ever asked me that. What do you mean future? Like Monday? Like, I don't know.
It's like, not funny, but like, yeah, you're right. Like,
but I mean, you know, you're talking to, remember, we're different demographic, right?
Yes.
And I'm thinking to myself, I just don't want to lose my job. And he's thinking, like, what do you want to do 5 years from now, right? So, because that's how in his culture, they're brought up like that. Yeah. So I really did it. I said, I don't know. And then I was kind of humble about that. And I think he realized that he literally on the whiteboard said, look, right now you're kind of in the administrative route, which is great. You can go this, executive admin, blah, blah, blah. Or you can go over here, like we're in the marketing department, and you can go coordinator, specialist, manager, senior manager, vice president. Like, so I really liked the longer line, which was the marketing line. And so I kept doing more in marketing. And so I ended up over 25 years as a marketing expert. And I learned from some of the top in the Silicon Valley industry because of it. And it was a time where this whole tech thing was new. So like phones, like mobile phones didn't exist. So I needed a new challenge. And after 4 years, I ended up working for a smartphone company. One of my believers at that sound company referred me. Very important not to break bridges, you guys. She's still a mentor of mine.
Oh, look at that.
And she's from India. You know, her name's Amala. She's from India. And she's one of the most, she is one of the most badass people I know. She works at Adobe. She's a vice president. Anyways, badass. But at the time, this is 20 something years ago, you know, she's kind of on the up and up. I'm just learning from people like her and like him and everybody around me. She refers me over to a mobile company, which at the time was the Palm Pilots. Remember Palm Pilots? Are you too young?
Blackberry?
No, yes, kind of. So they were organizers. They were just organize your day. And so this genius guy said, you know, what if we made it a phone? What if we made it smart? What if we made it a camera? And the reason I'm doing this is because the way it was happening is they would say, well, what if we attach to this organizer a phone module? Now it's a phone.
Wow.
Now it's a GPS.
That's how it started, right? That's crazy.
That's how it started. We used to go to trade shows and people had these like bandolero belts with all of these attachments. So the phones were like crazy.
That is...
I know it seems silly, but hey, guys, research. That's what happened.
That's history, you know?
Yeah. So this is the company's name was, sound company was Creative Labs. The phone company was called Handspring. It then went under because it lacked investment, but a lot of the people went to Apple, which, you know what happened to Apple. So some of those people doing smartphones here ended up over there. Wow. And then I ended up at Adobe, which is the largest creative software company in the world because one of the people, listen, I had my option to go to Apple and Adobe, and I chose Adobe because my friends worked there. So honestly, I'm like, pick where your friends are because you want to be comfortable, you know, where you're at también. A veces we kind of look at money and stuff. For me, in the long run, as a mom, Adobe ended up being the better choice at the time. And I ended up at Adobe over 20 years.
Wow.
Over 20 years. So
a lifetime, right?
A lifetime. I'm going to accelerate this because I talk too much.
No, this is, you know, like you're a storyteller, right? How can you not tell it in this way, right? And I'm like, what? So
I know one day my story will be a movie. I know it. And we're going to add all these weird technology things, you know?
Yes.
It's going to be awesome.
Did you hear what you said? My story is going to be a movie one day. Yes.
Yes, bring it.
Manifest that.
Yes, it's gonna be a movie one day, and it's gonna incorporate. I already have the script. It's gonna incorporate all of these really cool tech things that I just talked to you about, but through the eyes of an immigrant girl. Anyways, I already have the. Listen, now you got me. Like we're gonna start the movie like this. Somebody making yes, and then somebody clapping for me on stage. Like, okay, let's just stop that.
No, let's stop. Like you're giving the secret sauce, and
I know. So I'm just
gonna have everybody sign an NDA that's watching this. So no, like
hit us up and give us let's make a movie. So listen, I've been working in marketing all this time. I ended up working with my friend. By the way, I took on a 3-month contract at Adobe. It wasn't even full time. But at the time I had just had a baby, the unemployment and severance had run out of that mobile company. So I needed to take anything. And so I ended up working in a department I didn't know anything about, which was education, ironically. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the people were really cool. Like they were really cool. Like there was a very good group of people in that department. And I really liked the vibe. So follow the good vibe. And, those 3 months turned into 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And 6 years ago or so, and this is where we get to how I became or did all this stuff. So it took me all of that time, all of that journey. 6 years ago, Adobe's looking for stories from their employees of people who come from different places. I'm like, Zacatecas is pretty different. So, I actually submitted, they wanted submissions, which I like to call admissions. And I started off with, I was smuggled across the border because I'm a marketer. I know how to get attention, right? So they called me back and they wanted to make sure my story was real, to be honest. Of course it's real. Mm-hmm. So out of 700 submissions, I was the closing keynote. There was, I know it was a closing keynote of that day. Gloria Estefan was there. Like, that alone blew my mind. I was so hyper focused on her being there that day that I kind of like was not really paying attention to what I was going to talk about. But bottom line is that day changed my life.
Yes.
Because I got on a stage in front of 1,200 of the smartest people I knew in tech. Wow. And I told them that I didn't even have all of this fancy background. Eventually, I did end up getting a degree. That's very important, just to get it checked off. Nobody ever knew where I got it from or what. I just got a check mark. Yeah. But I told a story for 14 minutes on a stage. I was wearing this pink blouse, which that's a whole other story in itself. And as I'm talking about my story, my mom in the front with the CEO, she's sitting next to the CEO. She doesn't know. And then my family's there, and I'm literally feeling like, wow. And I had to practice this talk. And that was the other thing. I never spoke in my life. Remember, we don't talk. So I had to practice this talk. It's very important for us speakers to get up on a stage and know what we're talking about and know our flow. Just like I'm talking to you and you're kind of hearing a flow. Yep. Like we even if we don't know what we're going to say specifically, we got to know our flow.
Yes.
So I'm there, I'm going through my flow. My mom is their CEO, and like words of shame, like literally, I like to visualize, just came off of my body.
Wow.
You know, because everything that I thought was taboo or had been hidden or blah, blah, blah was out in the open. I was no longer hiding. How could I hide? I was wearing a pink shirt, like that color. Yes. And it was being blasted out to 30,000 employees. And it was it was really crazy. And so after that, I put out a thank you on LinkedIn. And then people started following me and they're like, wait, people like you, like what? Like me? People like me can work at places like that. Yes. And then I started writing more on LinkedIn, little stories. And those little stories became a book. And I've given over. Oh, and then I have a party because I have a book now at publisher, right? And we throw
Yes,
parties. It's important to
yes,
celebrate us.
yes.
And I couldn't afford the MC. The MC tells me, Mija, just pay me with books for my kids. She has middle schoolers.
Wow.
So I gave her sets of books. Somebody overhears and says, I'd like to donate a set of books too. So that became the big aha moment. What if we gave away books of hope to kids? And
Oh,
that was the beginning of my journey in creating a nonprofit. Yeah, I'm like, I never have done it, but we figured it out. I had
yes.
never written a book. I
And you
figured it
figured
out.
it out.
And now I'm like, this nonprofit, I'm like, okay, I'll figure it out. So it's been 2 years on the nonprofit. And yeah,
Congratulations.
thank
Oh
you.
my God. So I feel like we need a part two.
Let's do it. Let's do part
we'll
two.
figure Martha Nino part two, because that was just the beginning. And what you shared, I'm just sitting here like, I wish I had time to kind of even ask you more questions, but oh, thank you for sharing just a piece of your journey in such a beautiful way, Martha. We are gonna have a part two, okay?
Let's do part two. Let's do part two.
But before we go, is how can we support you? Like right now, those that are listening and those that might, kind of watch us later, what would be kind of the thing to leave with everybody and how to support you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, if we want a part two, we could just continue this. We'll chop it off and we'll get it out later. I'm just saying that we can figure that out.
Okay.
But si no, we'll get on another call. But listen, you can support me by following me on LinkedIn at Martha Nino. It's the one with the little butterfly icon. I do a lot on there. The Martha Nino Foundation on Instagram. And honestly, if anybody would like to become a book fairy to help out these kids, I literally right now have 10,000 kids on demand who have requested me as a motivator at their schools. I go in entire schools at a time, and I motivate and I give them all literature that, that they can relate to. And so you can become a book fairy. Just go to, Martha Nino /donate on my website. And that's how you can keep supporting me. So that's a little about me. And let's figure out this part two.
Yes, it was amazing spending time with you today. Thank you for being you. Honestly, this was lovely. And all the links that Martha shared, we're gonna put in the links. And stay tuned for part two. Okay. Bye, everybody. Bye, Martha. Thank you so much.
Bye.